So let's just break down what we've seen happening in the last 24 hours and now a new development today. President Trump made a statement that he was negotiating a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And it turns out that now Israel accepted the deal, Hamas rejected it. This is what Trump said yesterday. My representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. The Qataris and Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace. By the way, the Qataris told Hamas previously not to release some of the hostages. The Qataris celebrate Hamas and Islamists routinely in their state media, in culture, and among their politicians. They play a kind of two-faced game. So let's be very cautious about the Qataris. But anyway, they have worked very hard to bring peace, he says, and will deliver this final proposal. I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas will take this deal because it will not get better. It will only get worse. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And that's sort of become like a household phrase of the past few weeks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's Trump's signature line now. But it turns out that Hamas has turned down Trump's proposal for a ceasefire. And I've got to say that this has got to be the first quote-unquote genocide in history where the victims opt for the genocide, quote-unquote, to continue. This is where it becomes utterly ridiculous and farcical. You know, I saw a video showing how beautiful and built up Gaza looked on October the 6th, 2023, and then saying, look how terrible the devastation is afterwards. And I put a comment on the JTV's Instagram account, commenting on that video because it was an anti-Israel account. And I just wrote, I thought it was a concentration camp in Gaza. Isn't that what you said it was for the last 25 years, which led to all this resentment and led them to do what they did on October 7th? The narrative is full of contradictions because that's the nature of lies. Lies are full of contradictions. They're based on a non-reality. And so Hamas have rejected what Trump agreed to. Why? Because they say they want an entire end to all hostilities, whereas a ceasefire was just going to be a 60-day ceasefire. And in my view, Israel doesn't just have a right, but has a duty. No matter how long it may take them, no matter how much we may disagree on tactics or how long this war should take, they have a duty to destroy Hamas. Someone said, you know, if these are sometimes pro-Israel commentators, they say if Israel just got back the hostages, that would end the war. I think that cannot be the only purpose of this war, to reclaim the hostages. It has to be also to destroy Hamas, because the point is, until you destroy them, they pose a grave security threat and risk. And Netanyahu has said this. He said this over and over, that is one of the key missions of the war, to destroy Hamas, to make sure they're never able to do what they did ever again. So Israel, in my view, cannot agree. I would even say, for even the question of a ceasefire is a different story if they think that can lead to the release of hostages. But anything that leads to Israel having to compromise on her security, her national security, is not moral. It can't be acceptable. Worse than that, it actually encourages the terrorists to keep putting pressure on Israel, to cave in more and more and more until their national security is compromised in existential ways, God forbid. So the question is, what now? Well, let's get back up what Trump said earlier. He said, I hope that Hamas takes the deal because it will not get better, it will only get worse. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe this is going to be the point at which Trump says to Israel, you know, you have the green light to go ahead and finish the job. But the question, of course, is, what does finishing the job look like? How are we going to know when you know, this issue of Hamas has been resolved? And I say that President Trump should reconsider what he suggested just a few months prior. And what did he suggest? He suggested relocation. Now, people, when they hear that, they say, that's outrageous. You can't do that. Well, for 100 years, the Jewish people have tried to find a way to accommodate the Arabs living in this territory. And for those that say, well, come on, they shouldn't have to just accommodate you. You know, they were kicked out. No, there were Jews and Arabs living there. And there had never been an Arab state there. And the British were controlling the area. They handed it to the UN. The UN said, right, well, there's a roughly equal amount of Jews and Arabs living here. So let's just divide it into two states. You know, there has been a Jewish state 2,000 years ago. The Jews have had a 3,000 year connection with this land. And they come from this land. They're returning there. They always maintained a presence there. And there's been Arabs here since the Islamic conquest of the 7th century. And by the way, many actually Arabs started to come in the 19th or 20th century precisely because Jews were returning and they were starting to make their land flourish again. But either way, the Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. They went to war against the Jews and many got displaced in this war of survival for Israel, where yes, war is messy, but that's our fault? How can that be Israel's fault? It was the Arab side that started the war of annihilation, of genocide against the Jews, and it's our fault that Israel fought back? And for 100 years, they've tried different approaches of, you know, so many different formulas. And each time, they have shown themselves not to be willing partners for peace. The withdrawal of Gaza in 2005 and the last 25 years has been 20 years, has been a litmus test for what would a two-state solution look like. And October 7th was the answer. So they've shown themselves not to be interested in living alongside Israel. They've also shown themselves not to really be interested in self-determination. Because had the Arabs won in 1948, what would have happened? They wouldn't have a free Palestine. Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria would all have a chunk of the land. And when Jordan and Egypt occupied Judea and Samaria and Gaza between 1948 to 1967, there was no big call for a free Palestine in those areas. No, they were happy to be under Egypt and Jordan. That shows it's not about Palestine, it's about the Jews returning to their ancient, sovereign, God-given homeland. And so they're not willing to compromise on this. And the more we feed the Palestinian narrative, which is phony, which is a lie from beginning till end, I'm talking about a sense of national identity, which is entirely cynically created. The more we indulge in this notion, the more we feed this fantasy of trying to destroy Israel and the Jews. And so I would think, even putting Israel and the Jews out of the picture for a second, for the sake of Arabs, if I was an Arab living in Gaza, I would much rather be relocated to another part of the Arab world where I can live in peace, rather than I'm basically guaranteed to be living in endless war, because the people that my people will elect or who will be running the show are going to be genocidal death cultists against Israel. So it's going to be endless war. So Trump's vision is not, people think, oh, it's so, one-sided towards Jews and Israel. It's actually for the benefit of Arabs as well. Go live in another part of the Arab world of which you are indigenous to, and let's find a way, maybe they can find a way to make it really work for them. And then maybe you won't feel this incentive, this need, this identity to try and make it all about fighting war against the Jews. And by the way, you should know that in the Palestinian National Charter created in the 60s, they say that the Palestinians are an inseparable part of the Arab nation. The Arab nation has 21, 22 countries already. The Palestinian Arabs, by the way, and Palestinian I mean just in terms of a particular territory, they already are a majority in Jordan. So you'd want another of many Arab states, a second Palestinian state. I'm sorry, but it's absurd. For the sake of everyone, I hope that Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump go back to the drawing board, go back to this plan that they were suggesting all along. And I have to tell you, I'm the last person on the planet that would want to see anyone moved, anyone relocated. That's not who I am. But ultimately, if you're trying to kill me, if you cannot make peace, if living next to me is going to incense you every single day, then for both of our sakes, something has to give. I think this is sensible, it's moral, and just because it's radical, well, the old tried and tested paths have clearly failed us, haven't they? So excited to share with you something that I've been working on for a while. We've just taken JTV content to the next level. Introducing JTV Plus, a new platform streaming exclusive content created and handpicked by me. Get ready for jaw-dropping documentaries, exclusive interviews, insider access, and so much more. JTV Plus brings you captivating stories that will shock and inspire you, stories that honestly I'm discovering for the first time too. From Israel to Jewish history to Judaism, it's all there. In exclusive interviews, you'll hear guests open up about things they've never shared publicly before. Plus, I'll take you behind the scenes where I get a lot more personal with you. By joining JTV Plus, you're not just joining an exclusive community, you're partnering with me to help JTV reach new heights. Just search j-tv.plus and join our exclusive community today. There's a link in the video description. I'll see you there.